Okay, number 2 is teach learning. And I know that sounds like an easy thing. It's not. It is not an easy thing to teach learning, but teaching dyslexics how to learn instead of teaching them what to learn is going to change your life and theirs. I might need to do a separate video on this. I'm not really sure if I can make this a quick summary, but the basics are just make sure they know how to think. So ask questions, have them ask you questions, talk about things. I think it's very hard for some of us as parents when we don't have a passion for a particular subject to engage our children because we just either don't know or we don't find it fascinating. And so we feel like we can't come up with great questions. But even if it means that we need to get a book of questions, that's what we need to do. But teaching dyslexic kids, just really like any other kid, but teaching dyslexic kids to think deeply and instead of having a vast array of knowledge, we want to concentrate the knowledge and make it go deep. When we can do that, when we can teach them how to find information, how to find knowledge, and how to understand the knowledge, which really is a complex thing for some dyslexics. And I'm going to say, I'm really generalizing a lot of these symptoms, and you'll have to just forgive me because my pool of dyslexics have generally the same symptoms. And so these are things that I am faced with every day. So these might not fit for yours, and you'll just have to bear with me. But teaching them to learn is an important way to stretch those muscles of analytics. So being able to analyze things, which if you really took a look at your dyslexic kid and looked at how they approached reading or how they approached a word problem in math, it's very important to really watch their body language, watch the words they use when they speak back to you. Are they simple words? Are they, is it a simple explanation? Are they telling you multi-step? And if they're telling you multi-step, they've got a good base for analyzing what they're reading. And that is important. I think sometimes we are so focused on literacy, which is a huge deal, don't get me wrong. We're so focused on literacy that we forget that they have to know how to use literacy. And I promise you, literacy will come if you're doing the basics and tutoring. Literacy will come. It will probably come later, but it will come. But in the meantime, you need to be teaching them to learn. In the meantime, you need to be stretching those muscles of analyzing. You need to be helping them to learn and helping them to find where to learn. So as of this time, nobody really uses dictionaries anymore. So help them. Let them use Surrey on your phone. Obviously with you present, electronics in our house have a very specific use. So I am not a proponent of letting children just have technology. That's just not something that I do, but there are ways to get information. And when we don't expose our dyslexic kids to that and we demand that their literacy be the way that they get information, we really strangle their desire to learn. So different things that I'll talk about probably in a different video, but things like using Surrey to define a word. A lot of times dyslexics have a smaller vocabulary because ultimately studies have shown that most dyslexics cap out about a 9th grade reading level, even with extreme intervention. So if you think about that, about how at about a 9th grade level where your vocabulary is going to end up staying, that is going to limit your use of language. So teach them to use Surrey to define a word. You start using words that maybe are comfortable for you, but like I can't even say comfortable, but aren't comfortable for you, but you are going to force yourself to use it in your vocabulary with them. So basic things is to teach them to learn, how to acquire the information. The greatest benefit that you're going to see with your dyslexic kids, I promise you, is their resilience in life. And when you give them the opportunity to have self-reliance in the learning area, meaning they can find information because they know how, then they are set up. They are great. Literacy is important, but that is not the only form of education. And it is important for them and for you to be tutoring them to get them to the point where they can find information through books and through reading. But it's also so important for you to expose them to the different ways to do things. So expose them to someone that you trust that can teach them a skill that they can learn, and then use that skill to teach them math. Use that skill to teach them science. I think sometimes as homeschool moms, we want success for our children so much that we forget that they will be using calculators. It's a reality of their lives, and they will be using spell check. I still use spell check. I have to use spell check. I have gotten to the point where if I exchange emails enough with someone, I apologize right up front if spell check misses something from me, and just understand that, it is what it is. So I want you to understand that teaching them to have a deep knowledge and how to acquire it is so important. It is equally as important as literacy. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers, but it is equally as important as literacy, because at some point they are going to become stymied by the fact that they can't get from a book what everyone else can get from a book. And we have been blessed with the option of going to YouTube to find information. These people who create YouTube channels that give us scientific information, what a blessing. What a blessing for those of us who find reading books laborious. So what I would suggest is, while your children are growing up, help them find resources that are going to teach them to learn. Teach them where to get that information. Teach them how to think. Now, there's more to this subject about teaching them how to decipher the information they're receiving, because as a dyslexic, and as every kid, I guess, when we take in so much information, we have to be able to decipher truth. So there are so many ways to get knowledge. Teach your children ways to learn. Teach them how to learn. Find out what works for them. Find out how they can get there.